Remember to turn on all notifications so you don't miss a video. The sports subgenre in anime and manga is one with so much potential, but is sadly held back by the abundance of hack writers and sellouts. Haikyuu and Ahiru no Sora are the golden and silver standards respectively for what a sports anime can be. This standard is rarely ever met though, and as a person who enjoys sports to a degree in real life, this bothers me a lot. The first and most prominent issue I see in sports manga is the superpowers. Instead of focusing on the actual rules and mechanics of the sports, a lot of stories decide to add in superpowers to the sport and focus on that instead. Personally, this tells me one of two things. Either the author didn't have enough confidence in the sport alone being entertaining, so they added in this nonsense to keep the audience's attention, or the author knows very little about the sport and has very little passion for it, but wanted to make their story anyway, so they use superpowers as a way to cover up their ignorance. In the first case, you're a sellout, and in the second, you're a hack. So neither is good and both are personally insulting. Sports are interesting and engaging enough without superpowers, if not more engaging. There's a reason the top athletes and sports associations make a ton of money. There are many cool elements that could be made cooler in manga format, but this is rarely capitalized upon. Additionally, focusing on superpowers tends to dumb down the sport in focus. It reduces all the intricacies like strategy, positioning, and technique required for a sport to this team has better powers than that team. I've yet to see a superpowered anime that doesn't sacrifice the actual mechanics of the sport. Now, here are a few examples. Captain Tsubasa, a soccer manga, is one of the biggest offenders of this category. I watched the first few episodes of the 2018 remake, and I've seen some scenes from both anime, and I was greatly disappointed. The characters have all these special shots, some which are grounded, and others which are completely fantastical. Connecting to what I said before, it seems to reduce the story down to which team has the better super shots and goalies. Inazuma 11 is even worse. I remember watching one match, and the whole match was basically characters using outlandish superpowers the entire time. I believe less than half of the match was regular soccer. I've heard of other offenders like Prince of Tennis and iShield 21, but I don't know enough about them to say much. One story that is on the fence for superpowers is Kuroko's Basket. Some of its exaggerations are done well, while others are done terribly. I'll start with the bad exaggerations. First is Akashi. The Emperor's Eye is like something out of a battle manga, and it is obnoxious. Now, if they had just said that he was so good at observation that he can predict movements, I would have been more okay. But this is something that he activates like a power, which is stupid. His ankle break dribble is also terrible. He can simply bounce the ball, and his opponents fall like they slipped on ice or an earthquake just happened. If you've seen ankle breaks in basketball, you know this is not how they work. It's about getting the defender to fall off balance. Additionally, ankle breaks are often due to the incompetence of the defender rather than the skill of the dribbler, but this isn't the case for Akashi. There are times where he sort of fakes, but there are also times where he doesn't. Additionally, he can drop almost anyone, and I don't recall the dribble ever failing. Another problem is that, like the eye, this is a move that has to be consciously used. While this is less of a problem due to real ankle breakers, it is still a problem because in real life you can't just break a defender's ankles whenever you want to. There isn't a specific dribble that accomplishes this. You can try, but sometimes you fail, and other times you break ankles without intending to. Kuroko treats this more like a special move, rather than an occurrence that can happen. The next problematic character is Kisei. His copying is a problem for obvious reasons. He can copy techniques perfectly after seeing them once. This is a superpower straight out of battle manga. I won't go into depth on why this is stupid because it should be obvious, but imitating mid-game is not a problem for me. It is somewhat probable. My problem is when the exaggeration becomes nearly absolute in its effectiveness. Next is the zone. This is something I'm in the middle about. The zone does exist in sports, and the way Kuroko makes it enhance the player's base abilities is cool. But my problem is how characters can force themselves into it, how a love of sport is needed to use it, and how only the best player on each team can enter it. Now we go to good exaggerations. Kagami's exaggeration is his jumping ability. This is managed very well. He can do amazing feats like dunking from the free throw line, but this is actually possible and has been done in basketball. I'm not sure if Meteor Jam has been done, but it doesn't seem too improbable. Aomine is probably the greatest form of exaggeration in Kuroko. He has street ball handles and can break ankles, which is completely realistic. He also has the formless shot. Some of these shots are a little exaggerated, but the concept of successfully shooting without form is realistic. The most exaggerated parts are his accuracy and the angles that he shoots at. Things like shooting behind the backboard and the fadeaway are real moves. Seeing the way Kuroko handles Kagami and Aomine's special moves really shows how much potential there is behind this type of balance. But Haikyuu is the golden standard for exaggeration. Haikyuu's type of exaggeration is by having characters frequently do things that would happen once in a lifetime in real life. It rarely deals in absolutes and definitely doesn't have superpowers. Even a character like Kageyama, who is said to have pinpoint accuracy, can miss his tosses. I've gone into more detail in other videos, so I'll leave it at that. Other stories like Ahiru and Slam Dunk don't even have anything remotely close to superhuman. It's just characters playing the sport regularly, but with an anime flair. While I have problems with the story, Slam Dunk's display of characters playing basketball is pretty great. It's not spectacular, but I would love it if it was the bottom line for sports manga. The characters make use of formations and strategies, and characters have their unique movesets. On the main team, they have characters with simple movesets like Mitsui, who is good at threes, Miyagi, who is a fast point guard, and Sakuragi, who is good at rebounding and dunking. Then they have characters with a wider arsenal, made up of threes, layups, dunks, dribbling, and defense, which would be Rukawa. Notice how none of these characters have special moves or named techniques outside of real moves. While I like mild exaggeration, this adherence to reality is charming and allows for such powerful moments. Spoiler warning, but the final point of the last match in the story wouldn't have been nearly as powerful if characters had superpowers. Throughout the manga, Sakuragi sucked at shooting and Rukawa was a ball hog, but in the last play, Rukawa is up against a player that is as good as or better than him. When he gets the ball with seconds left on the clock, he goes up for a shot against two defenders, but instead of taking it, he passes it to an open Sakuragi, who then takes a three, giving them just enough points to win. Both of them overcoming their weaknesses to win a match was phenomenal. Ahiru no Sora also has characters playing like this. The best player on the team is Kite. His moveset is made up of layups, threes, and dribbling. The main character, Sora, basically has the same moves, but less effective and with less height. In the manga, characters usually power up by switching to a position that is more suited for them, which is one of the most unique concepts I've seen in sports manga. Examples would be when Sora switched to point guard and when Chiaki switched to small forward. The story uses a lot of plays and formations, showing that a sport can be entertaining even without powers or exaggerations. There are also two other sports manga that I dislike, but don't fall under the superpower problem. If you couldn't tell, I like soccer and basketball, and think they have the highest potential to be amazing in manga. Basketball already has 3 popular manga with anime that are varying ranges of good. Soccer doesn't have a single good anime, so seeing these next 2 fail in writing was painful. The first is Days. The manga and anime were just downright boring. The main characters were not interesting, and there were too many characters fighting for screen time early on in the story. While it doesn't have superpowers, it doesn't use the actual mechanics of the sport well either. There was very little strategy or individual talents from players. The matches also weren't visually entertaining. Mix that in with a rushed plot, and you get a story that provides 0 reasons for investment. The other manga is Blue Lock. I am surprised at the amount of praise people give this manga. It has a unique problem that is just as bad as superpowers. That problem is that it changes the way soccer is played. The primary philosophy is my first problem. The main message that is pushed throughout the story is that a striker is basically someone who's selfish and can score all on their own. The first chapter even spouts nonsense like, the best player is the one who scores the most goals. The entire training camp that the story takes place in is meant to create the greatest striker in Japan. It doesn't take a professional to realize that this is utter nonsense and detrimental. Soccer is a team sport. Selfishness and ego from a star striker can only take a team so far. The easiest example of this from the same exact sport is Messi. He's arguably the greatest footballer in existence, yet he hasn't won a World Cup because his team isn't that good. He can't do everything on his own. I could rip apart this notion even more, but I think I've made my point. Another thing I don't like is how it simplifies some concepts. In chapter 24, they talk about creating repeatable formulas for scoring goals, and in later chapters, you can see characters actually taking this philosophy seriously. The specific quote is, "Claim victory by a logical sequence." This is a gross oversimplification of winning any team sport. While making formulas is part of the sport, there's no way a player can account for every single variable, which is where improvisation and luck comes in. Even the greatest athletes improvise or get lucky, but this manga wants to get rid of chance. The philosophies this manga holds are clearly ignorant. There is a chance that the story will go back on these themes and show that Blue Lock was wrong, but I doubt it. Themes are extremely important in stories, so fumbling the theme in the very first chapter is disastrous. My next problem is the way they play. They have a camp full of just strikers put into different teams. Due to the stupid theme of the manga, characters initially don't even work as a team. This is frustrating because as a soccer manga, I expected to see traditional soccer played. As time goes on, characters start working more like a team, which is contrary to the theme, which is good. But what's even worse is the beginning of the camp. In chapter 2, they play a game of tag where the goal is to kick the ball into another player. Players kick other players in the face like they're doing kung fu. Players kick the ball into other people's faces and stomachs, and a player even does a full Nelson to get someone else hit. So not only are they not playing soccer straight, but they're also breaking the rules. It's hard to describe how stupid this was. In chapter 5, there was a traditional 11v11, but the players were all trying to score, which meant that they'd even get in the way of their teammates. In chapter 18, someone literally switches teams during the match, making it a 12v10, and it's just allowed. These things tone down as the story continues, but it makes for a terrible start. And later, the main character has these special eyes that can see the future. This is a terrible form of exaggeration, as it borders on superpowers. All of this is extra disappointing because Blue Lock is good at almost everything else. Characters have specialties and movesets like Slam Dunk and Ahiru, although slightly more exaggerated. The art is amazing, the poses are dynamic and cool, and the action is very easy to follow. You can feel the passion for the sport through the characters and their facial expressions. It feels hype, but those flaws that I mentioned not only make the story bad, but it feels like an insult to the sport. Like I said about sellouts, it feels like the author didn't think the regular sport was cool enough, so they added all this extra nonsense. But if Blue Lock was a regular soccer manga played straight, I think it could have been amazing. In conclusion, I believe that sellouts who don't have faith in the regular sport and hack writers who are ignorant about the sport plague sports anime and manga and hold back the subgenre from becoming great. Serial anime are stories that tell an ongoing narrative across several episodes. Episodic anime are stories where each episode usually has its own self-contained story. In this video, I want to compare and contrast the two types of storytelling. The first thing I'll compare is the hook. In a serial anime, once the story hooks you, it has you until the end of its arc. The effect of one hook can be stretched over several episodes. In episodic anime, each episode has to hook the viewer since they don't tell a continuous story. These can be beneficial and detrimental. If a serial hooks you onto a great arc, as long as they keep the consistency, they won't have to work very hard to keep your attention. However, if the current arc is boring, you might completely lose interest. For episodics, the disadvantage is obviously that they have to try harder to hook the viewer every episode. But the advantage is that if they have a bad episode, the next episode can start fresh. Next is the story and creativity exhaustion. In serials, they can stretch out one plot over a long period of time, while episodics have to create a new plot for each episode. This can be a positive and a negative for episodics. The positive is that they can cover a lot more ground in a shorter amount of time than serials. The disadvantage is that all of those grounds may not be equal, and that this can become creatively exhausting over a long period of time. Serials have the advantage of being able to make their stories long without running out of ideas, but the disadvantage is that they will cover less ground in the same amount of time if those arcs are really long. Next is consistency. Serials have a lot more consistency than episodics. Serials are usually trying to tell a larger narrative and have focus. Meanwhile, episodics can temporarily switch genres for an episode if they so desire, because the end goal either doesn't exist or doesn't push the story forward very much. Whether high or low consistency is good or bad differs from person to person. Next is payoff. Serials have a greater payoff because they are building up to that ending every single episode. An episodic may switch to a 2 or 3 part build-up before the last episode in order to nail the payoff, but it usually won't be as impactful as multiple episodes of build-up. And finally, reception and grading. Episodics easily have a greater reception and grading. When people, including me, grade an episodic anime, we remember the best episodes and unconsciously bury the mediocre and bad episodes in the back of our minds before grading it. But for serials, since it was telling one long story, we remember nearly every single detail when grading it. If I were to rate my enjoyment of every single episode of my favorite anime, then take the average, the serial anime, fully canon of course, would heavily outshine the episodic anime. Yet that's not how I rate them. While not all serial or episodic anime will fall under these patterns, a good amount have in my experience. In conclusion, neither style is inherently better, and the choice just depends on what the author is willing to sacrifice in their story. The overhaul arc had many issues. The disconnect between Deku and Mirio's obsession with Eri and the viewer's apathy towards her. Deku using 100% full cow and wiping the floor with overhaul. Shigaraki, the inferior villain, having the last laugh on overhaul, the superior villain, and the lack of an ideological battle against overhaul are my main examples. But there's one thing that could have made all of these a lot more forgivable without changing the arc too much, and that would be more fights. Hero Academia is a battle manga, meaning that it is action driven. The overhaul arc set up its story to be something large scale, but its fights didn't reflect this. The biggest fights in the arc were Sun Eater vs the trio, Rappa vs Fat Gum and Kirishima, and Overhaul vs Mirio, Sir, and Deku. While each of these fights were well written, for the most part, there weren't enough of these. When an action-driven story has large-scale and impactful events happening, the amount of action has to match the scale and weight. The Sasuke retrieval arc was an extremely important moment in Naruto, carrying a lot of weight, also being the final arc of part 1. The arc's action met the story scale, giving each of the members in the group their own solo fight, and even having the Sand siblings join in some of them. All of these fights left the combatants either dead or in critical condition. The Soul Society arc has an important plot, with the second main character being captured and soon to be executed. The action once again lives up to the weight of the story, by having even more fights than the Sasuke retrieval, many of them being equally dangerous. Many other manga and anime do this. This is a super arc. Hero Academia has an arc with a group of villains creating a drug that can steal quirks. On top of that, the group is secretive, taking the heroes a while before they discover their base. The amount of time the heroes spend on locating them and the amount of planning they do before attacking tells us that this group is nothing to laugh at. The heroes have one chance to capture Chisaki and the Yakuza, and failure is not an option. All of these things hype up the arc's confrontation and let us know the weight of the situation. The only problem is that, as I said before, the action doesn't live up to the hype and the weight of the story. There are tons of heroes and Yakuza doing battle, yet we only see 3 of the fights. My solution is to actually use the characters that are in the arc and give them fights on the level of the 3 that were shown. Basically, make this arc take full advantage of being a super arc. The 3 fights all had flashbacks and fleshed out the antagonists and the heroes, had great writing for the physical battle, and a great conclusion that left both sides in critical condition, reflecting the seriousness of their situation. Nejire, Ochako, Tsuyu, and Ryuko were all seen at the start of the arc, like Kirishima, Fat Gum, and Sun Eater. So when both groups were put on the mission and everyone on Fat Gum's side got a fight, it felt like the same had to happen to Ryuko's side, but it didn't. These 4 did almost nothing in the raid. To help fix the arc, I believe Nejire and Ryuko should have gotten their own solo fight, while Ochako and Tsuyu get a team battle. Eraserhead and Rocklock both got a lot of attention before the raid, yet in the actual raid, they did very little, both being defeated pretty easily. This can be fixed by giving these 2 a team battle or each of them their own solo fights. All of these fights should follow what made the existing fights so good. Character development and flashback for both sides, creative use of quirks, and a desperate narrow victory. In conclusion, simply using the characters that didn't do much to add more fights of the same quality as the existing battles would have been enough to bring out more of the potential that this arc possessed. There are several reasons why power scaling doesn't work, and I will go over each of them. The first key reason is because the author has complete control over a fight. This means that the direction of a fight is unpredictable. Who makes the first move and what move they will make is not something the audience can accurately predict. The direction of a fight, if a character starts off with their strongest attack, would be much different than the direction of a fight if they didn't. What strategy the characters use and how smart they are in that specific fight is also decided by the author. The chain of events that happen within the fight is also unpredictable. How both characters react to each situation in any specific fight must be decided by the author. Whether or not the characters will hold back based on their personalities is another issue. The character could be overconfident or enjoy a good battle, and characters who are not usually like this could be made that way by the author, but I'll bring that up later. Ultimately, to have a theoretical fight, there needs to be an author making all of these small decisions. These are characters, not real people, so in order for them to act, they have to be written to act. And even if you want to imagine them as real people, no 2 fights between the same fighters will go down exactly the same way. All of these factors I mentioned will somewhat play a role in determining the probability of the fight, but determining the rough probability of winning between 2 characters is definitely possible, because you can factor in all of these possibilities and roughly come up with the amount of situations where each character would win. The second key reason why power scaling doesn't work is that the fights happen within a story. For this section, I will mostly use examples from Naruto, but that in no way means that Naruto is the only one to do this. I could pull examples from other stories, but I know Naruto the best, and I would rather keep consistency. So because fights happen within a story, newly revealed skills and abilities can happen to benefit a character in a situation. These could have been learned off screen, or the character could have kept it hidden up until that point. Examples from Naruto include clones being able to take damage, Shinra Tensei and the Kyuubi cloak being able to repel Amaterasu, Rasengan and Chidori being equal at the end of part 1, and Sakura transferring her 100 seal to Obito. An example from JoJo would be Josuke fusing Angelo with a rock. The second issue that arises is the fact that new moves and power-ups can be revealed mid-battle. Characters could have trained for this off-screen, or this could have been a plot twist in the story. Either way, characters gain new abilities during battle. Examples from Naruto would include Version 1 Cloak, Sasuke Curse Mark Stage 2, Itachi Susanoo, his Yasaka Magmata, Night Guy, Sasuke's Hawk, Kirin, Sasuke's Amaterasu, Kakashi Susanoo, Twin Lion Fist, Shadow Strangle, and Avatar Kurama. Examples from One Piece include Gear 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, Nine Sword Style, Diable Jambe, and Luffy's Future Vision. An example from JoJo would be Giorno making Bruno's mind move faster than his body. From Bleach, Ichigo's full hollow form, Ikaku's Bankai, Yumichiko's true Shikai, Toshiro's improved Bankai, and Kenpachi's Bankai. The third issue is that characters can conveniently forget powers or abilities. This means that during a fight, the author may either forget or not want a character to use a specific ability, so the character ends up not using it. Examples from Naruto include Temari forgetting her summoning during the war, Lee forgetting his gates 3 through 5 against Kimimaro, Gaara and his one-tailed powers against Kimimaro and Deidara, Naruto and Sasuke's summonings in their battles at the end of Part 1 and Part 2, Kakashi's Mangekyo in Part 1, Sasuke's Kirin and Snakes after his fight with Itachi, his Armored and EMS Susanoo after the first usage of each, Naruto's Truth Seeker orbs, and Sasuke not using most of his Rinnegan powers. From One Piece, Zoro still has not used Nine Sword style since the time skip. From Bleach, Ichigo forgot his hollow powers after his fight with Ulquiorra, and only remembered them against Yhwach. From JoJo, Giorno forgot his Life Shot ability after its first usage. The fourth issue is that the author controls the amount of stamina and magic power of any given character. Characters get tired or run out of magic whenever it is convenient for the direction of the fight that the author wants to take. Stories aren't like RPGs, where each character has a set amount of MP, and each move always takes the same amount of MP. Examples from Naruto include Shikamaru against Temari and Tayuya, Gaara running out versus Sasuke when he fought longer against Lee, and Sasuke versus Deidara. Some moves are said to have a limited amount of stocks per day, but those can be broken mid-battle if the author wants. Chidori had a 2 per day limit, but Sasuke broke it with the Curse Mark's help. Kamui had its limit, and it was broken during the war. Sasuke was even out of chakra against Deidara, and still summoned a snake. From Bleach, Ichigo had a time limit on his Hollow Mask, but he broke it against Green Jiao and Ulquiorra. From One Piece, Luffy's fight against Lucci and Katakuri had him taking huge beatings and getting up every time, even though he had barely defeated Cracker in the same arc from less damage. The fifth issue is that there could be external factors that influence a fight, as I briefly mentioned before. This could be mental or physical. Examples from Naruto include Kimimaro and Itachi being sick during their battles that led to their death. Haku was also holding back in his fight against Naruto and Sasuke. From Bleach, Kenpachi consistently holds back, and Byakuya initially holds back in his fight against Ichigo. In his fight with Greenjo, Ichigo was distracted by Orihime being afraid of him. From One Piece, Doflamingo and Katakuri initially hold back against Luffy, not using their awakening powers at the start of the fight. The sixth and final issue is that whatever the author wants to happen will happen. If the author wants the weaker character to win, they will pull all stops to have that outcome happen. They can use any of these 5 issues I brought up to influence the fight and make it believable. Next is the third key reason that power scaling doesn't work. In most theoretical power scaling fights that I've seen, rules had to be changed. For example, in Death Battle, the characters are always set to kill, which may ignore whether a character's personality prevents them from killing. Second, many theoretical battles happen within a bubble that is separated from the story. The characters are mentally and physically perfect, and no new abilities can be revealed mid-battle. The writer takes the characters from a certain point in their own story and puts them in their own bubble and has them fight in perfect condition with their current abilities. This is a problem because it's contradictory. The writer was only able to get these characters' abilities or feats, as many power scalers say, from the story, where all the factors from the second key point existed. But now to create this fictional fight, the writer removes all of those factors and writes the fight in a bubble. This might be one of the more convenient ways to create a fictional fight, but like I said before, all fights happen within a story, not in a bubble. All the feats came from the story, not from an unchanging stat sheet with consistent feats. So to write a fight in a bubble with a stat sheet is contradictory to how the fights that the writer is using as a stat sheet occurred. Another issue is that the fights always have a writer. As I said before, these characters can't act on their own. The writer will always have a bias, and the specific actions and reactions that each character has will be determined by the author's bias if they try to write out a specific fight. The third issue would be cross-universe battles. Because the authors of the stories don't and shouldn't account for this, the changes to the rules of the power system would be unpredictable. How energies like chakra, reiatsu, ki, and nen would react with one another can't be predicted. Would they all be treated as the same energy? Would one counter another? Or would they be treated as physical objects to the other energy? There's also the question of elemental manipulation. Can characters from different universes control their opponent's element if they match? Little things like this would need to be taken into consideration to create the most accurate results, but the writer would need to make a biased decision to this open-ended question, thus altering the accuracy of the fight. Finally, I just want to give a couple of battle inconsistencies and author influence from Naruto specifically. Orochimaru is a Sannin with enough body modifications and jutsu to combat a version 2 Kyuubi, but he lost to Itachi by one genjutsu and even fears him. Sasuke had Kirin and Amaterasu, but Sasuke didn't use them against B because Kishimoto wanted to show off B's abilities. In Sasuke vs Danzo, Sasuke was allowed to crush Danzo at the start of the fight because Kishimoto knew that Danzo had Izanagi, and he wanted to show it off. Sasuke wouldn't have been allowed to start with such a powerful attack otherwise. In Naruto vs Pain, Naruto's allowed to go all out because we have already seen Pain's abilities. The Pains can be revived, and this is a 6v1. In Lee vs Gaara, Kishimoto wanted Gaara to win, so he did. The chakra consumption of the sand armor was hyped up as a huge weakness, yet Gaara fought for such a long amount of time. But against Sasuke, he runs out of chakra pretty quickly. Additionally, Gaara never fights this powerfully again. In conclusion, determining which character would win in a fight is impossible, but determining who is more likely to win and what are those chances is possible and much more effective. But it will probably never be completely accurate. I actually don't hate any of the points under the second key reason, because they make fights more entertaining and have resulted in some of the best fights. It is also nearly impossible to write a story without using one of these, unless the outcome of the fights is more important than the story to the author, which should never be the case. But I would prefer if authors did a better job at hiding these factors. If character X is going to be character Y, give X the abilities necessary to win when both fighters go all out, and or give Y a mental or physical drawback that weakens them. I only named a few examples under the second key reason to keep this video focused, but I'm sure you get the point. If you got this far, name some examples of the 6 issues under that reason that you've seen in anime or manga. The Yorknew City arc is easily the best arc in Hunter x Hunter and one of the greatest in all of anime and manga for several reasons. Let's begin. The first element that makes this arc so great is the protagonist, Kurapika. He's a much more serious character than Gon or Killua, so having him as the protagonist separated from the others allows for the story to be more serious and mature. This reduces the amount of silliness that would have been present if Gon was the protagonist, and allows for the tone to really sink in. Kurapika's goal of revenge also makes this arc shine. Revenge stories are so universally relatable and easy to get invested in, and this arc takes full advantage of that. The Phantom Troupe that was mentioned in the first arc is finally close by and Kurapika is going after them. That already gives the arc an engaging premise. Also, because he is much farther ahead in his Nen mastery, we as the audience get to learn so much about Nen as a power system, including type mastery, limits, and specialization. The theme is the second element. The message of this arc is that pursuing revenge will only bring Kurapika emptiness and potentially death. This can be seen executed several times, but mostly through melody. Whenever Kurapika starts getting angry, she can hear a dark tune coming from him, and she believes that it will lead him down a dark road. When Uvogin first shows up and Kurapika is losing his temper, she is forced to use her Nen to calm him down. When Kurapika and Gon were chasing the spiders, he's about to make the mistake of fighting. Killua had to be the one to cover for him in this situation. There are more examples, but several times throughout the arc, his lust for revenge has led to him almost making bad decisions. The nail in the coffin is when the spiders faked their deaths. After this, Kurapika became so empty, and this was basically a display of what would happen if he kept seeking revenge. He would be left with emptiness. This is a great theme that was executed very well. The third element is the complex plot. In another video, I talked about how effective formulas were. In all of the formulas that I mentioned, the arcs were very similar and simple, yet effective. Yorknew City is the opposite of that, yet still equally effective. Like some other manga, there is no formula for Hunter x Hunter's arcs. But on top of that, this arc cannot easily be simplified. The Chimera Ant arc can be split up into 3 sections. Gon and Killua training with Kite, Gon and Killua training with the other hunters, and the attack on the castle. The same can't be said about Yorknew. There are so many different perspectives and events going on. Kurapika and the bodyguards, Gon and his friends, and the spiders are the 3 main perspectives that are used. They all start off separate with their own plots, but slowly interact and join as one as the story moves forward, which is so entertaining to watch. The plot has so many different events going on. Kurapika becomes a bodyguard. Gon's side is making money through arm wrestling. The auction takes place and the spiders kill everyone, but the items are gone. The spiders fight the phantom beasts, but Kurapika and the bodyguards show up and capture Uvogin. Meanwhile, Gon and his group begin hunting the troupe after the bounty is placed on the spiders. They also learn appraising. Assassins, including the Zoldycks, are hired to kill the troupe. Gon and Killua get captured by the spiders. Krollo steals the fortune-telling Nen ability. The spiders rampage on the city, and finally, the group of main characters get together to make one last attempt at attacking the spiders. There are so many initially disconnected events that end up blending perfectly together. Gon's desire for money ends up leading him to the spiders, even though his story was initially separate from Kurapika's. Even the appraising ends up being of use later in the arc. One thing that this arc does that many battle manga struggle with is having a varied selection of events in one arc. Battle manga frequently rely on fighting as the main event happening, and very little outside of that occurs. But this arc had several different events: arm wrestling, appraising, bounty hunting, bodyguarding, trailing, and even bargaining. This arc actually barely relies on action, but I'll tackle that later. What's fascinating is how all of these different events manage to be very engaging, despite not being action-oriented. The fourth element is the danger of the spiders. The arc does an amazing job at selling their threat level. The story hyped them up in the first arc, so they had to meet our expectations, and they did. They can wipe out a bunch of nameless grunts, but they even kill somewhat capable characters. The bodyguards during the auction were Nen users, yet they were dispatched with ease. The Phantom Beasts were hyped up, yet Uvogin killed 4 of them alone, and the rest were killed off screen by other spiders. Uvo threatening the lives of his captors was another display of the group's danger. When Gon and Killua got captured the first time, the gap between them and the spiders was enormous. Gon couldn't even move for a full second, and Killua surrendered very quickly. At the hideout, they continued to show their skill and power gap. And finally, when the duo gets captured a second time, the spiders get caught off guard, but are still able to respond and keep the kids captured. They are faster, stronger, and more skilled than most of the main characters, and this really amplifies the danger that this arc sells. Kurapika killing Uvo with ease does decrease the danger of the spiders, but he's incredibly powerful in his own right, as Crollo's prophecy said that in 2 weeks he'd kill 5 more spiders after Uvo if they stayed. The fifth element is the epic moments. While I have my problems with the balancing and creativity of certain moves, the action is still visually engaging and filled with spectacle. Uvo vs the Beasts, Kurapika vs Uvo, and the Zoldyx vs Crollo are some of the best examples. There is also a lot of smart strategy used throughout the arc that is so exciting to watch. Kurapika and the Hunters solving the bodyguard test, Leorio's arm wrestling scheme, Uvo's tactics against the Beasts and Kurapika, Sepal appraising, Gon and Killua escaping Nobunaga, Crollo stealing Neon's ability, Hisoka's fake fortune, and the plan to capture Crollo are my favorite examples. What is very surprising about the action is how small the amount of big battles are. There is one real battle that is fought to completion, which is Kurapika vs Uvo. Uvo vs the Beasts was a wash. The Zoldyx vs Crollo was interrupted, and outside of that, all of the other fights are a few blows exchanged, like Gon and Killua vs the spiders. The arc even passed on a Hisoka vs Crollo fight, which would have definitely increased this arc's greatness. Yet the arc doesn't really suffer from this. The drought in the battles allows for the plot to take focus, which is what allowed for the third element to exist, which I think is the strongest element. In conclusion, having Kurapika as the protagonist, the great theme, the complex and layered plot, the danger of the spiders, and the epic and exciting moments are what make this arc one of anime and manga's greatest arcs. Now that Sasuke is back, Naruto doesn't have a flashback of Sasuke. Instead, Sasuke is there with the rest of the team as they go to see Kakashi. Sakura's insults towards Naruto are toned down, but Sai still calls her a hag. Sakura doesn't slap her teammates, so Kakashi doesn't pull her over. Also, Sasuke and Kakashi reunite. All of the conversations about Sasuke are replaced with getting stronger to combat the Akatsuki. When Team Asuma comes back, they also meet Sasuke for the first time since time skip. Shikamaru doesn't talk about the Sasuke problem since it has been solved. When Naruto is surprised by his amount of chakra, Kakashi reminds him that he broke his limits, something that had never been done before. When explaining wood style, it isn't explained as a mixture of 2 elements, but instead a Kekkei Genkai he gained from Hashirama's cells. Element mixing is no longer a thing. Throughout Naruto's training, he's less dumb and can pick up on things faster. During Naruto's training, his exclamation about catching up to Sasuke stays, and flashbacks of the previous mission are shown. Sakura doesn't cry over Sasuke in her room. When Kakashi makes the Rasengan, he adds that he has come up with his own jutsu that mixes nature transformation. He shows off this jutsu, lightning style Rasengan blade, and the other 2 are amazed, but he does bring up that Minato was unable to do this. Kakashi doesn't say that it might be impossible to mix the Rasengan with nature, as he has already done so. He now says that he believes that Naruto can also surpass the 4th. While Kakashi is surprised about Naruto's strategy for mixing shape and nature, since he could also do it, his praise is reduced, also removing any connection to the 4th. The scenes of Team Asuma mourning from the anime are included. When Kakashi and Team Asuma attack Hidan and Kakuzu, Ino has a Kusarigama that she learned to use over the time skip, and when Shikamaru goes over each member's abilities, he brings up Ino's newly learned water style and Choji's earth style. When Kakuzu says that immortality doesn't exist, he brings up the fact that even Hidan can die from malnutrition. When he uses the fire style mask, Choji uses an earth wall to protect Kakashi. Ino joins Kakashi in water style to put out Kakuzu's flames. When Shikamaru explains his plan, he also adds that he put some blood on himself for further measure. When Kakuzu is about to kill the team, Kakashi is about to use his remaining chakra on Kamui when Team 7 appears. At the end of Shikamaru's fight, he lights Asuma's cigarette like in the anime and instead throws the lighter. When Naruto decides to take on Kakuzu, he starts by asking him why he killed Asuma and the others. As the two fight, Kakuzu explains that it was for the bounty. Naruto questions if that's his only reason and Kakuzu confirms, revealing his greediness to his opponent. He also explains that bounty hunting and money is what kept him alive in the past. When the Rasen Shuriken fails, Sasuke is the one who frees Naruto. Sasuke makes fun of Naruto's failure, which irritates the latter. Naruto doesn't recite Kakashi's words, and instead works together with the team. Kakashi takes a food pill as they prepare to fight. Naruto tries to find the flaw in Kakuzu's logic, but because Kakuzu's nature is inherently greedy, he can only tell him that what he's doing is wrong, but this of course isn't enough to change the Akatsuki member. Kakuzu attacks with large masses of thread, as Yamato, Choji, Ino, and Sasuke deal with them. Kakashi charges his Rasengan blade, and Naruto charges his Rasen Shuriken. As the threads begin to overwhelm the others, Kakashi uses Rasengan blade to cut down every single thread, shocking Kakuzu, and giving Naruto the opening to finish off the Akatsuki members' remaining masks with Rasen Shuriken. Since Naruto didn't win this on his own, Choji and Ino don't compliment him as much, instead directing some praise towards Kakashi. Kakashi's inner monologue does not include surpassing him or generations surpassing the old ones, but ends on Sasuke. Sasuke also has an internal monologue, wondering if Naruto could possibly catch up to him. When Kakashi goes to kill Kakuzu, he doesn't mention generations surpassing each other. Starting with the Konoha side of the Itachi pursuit mission, the team is eating, now with Sasuke. In the flashback, he doesn't say we're getting closer, but instead tells Sasuke directly that he's catching up to him. Also, during the flashback, after the battle, Naruto is upset about to change Kakuzu. When Kakashi mentions the Mangekyo Sharingan, Sasuke is surprised and asks him how he got his, but he keeps it a secret. Kakashi's flashback about Tsunade telling him not to use the jutsu, and Naruto's reaction is the same. Konohamaru's jutsu plays out mostly the same, with Sakura being less aggressive. In the next arc, Team Kakashi and Team Kurenai have another joint mission. Their mission is to capture two Akatsuki who are currently hiding in Konoha. Deidara and Tobi have been assigned with the mission of capturing the Ninetales. A jaded orphan named Nanaka helps them remain undercover. During the mission, Kiba wants to lead his team like Sasuke does for his team, so he decreases his ego. Hinata looks up to Naruto and wants to become more outspoken and confident like him. Shino wants to become more of a team player. By the time the 8 find Deidara and Tobi, the 3 from Kurenai have achieved their respective character development. When Sasuke sees Tobi, he remembers his own eye activating Amaterasu when he saw the latter's Sharingan. Kakashi and Kurenai stay back to test how far their students have come. In this battle, Naruto reveals an oil-spitting toad. Sasuke reveals his perfected Snake Sage mode, which surprises Naruto and makes him even more determined to surpass his rival. Sakura's new jutsus are Tsunade's nervous system rupture, a new Cherry Blossom Clash, a new Inner Sakura, Earth-style shield, and Kabuto's cellular activation. Hinata has learned an imperfect rotation. Kiba has learned Fang rotating Fang, and Shino has gained the use of different insects for different purposes. The fight ends with Deidara using C0, and the Konoha ninja narrowly escape with Sasuke's new teleportation jutsu, along with Kakashi's Kamui on the explosion. In the next arc, when Sasuke is alone, Tobi comes to meet him. Tobi explains that Itachi placed a post-mortem trap in Sasuke's eye before he died. The conversation from chapter 397 goes fairly the same, except Itachi failed to remove Sasuke's curse mark, since Sasuke still has the curse mark. After he's cut free, he does his own research and learns that Tobi was telling the truth. He then has his flashback from 402, before crying and awakening his Mangekyo. Sasuke leaves the village to train alone and meets with Hebi in secret. His dialogue of changing their name to Taka and destroying Konoha is put here. Sasuke explains his reasons like in chapter 416, but he decides to pretend to still be allied with Konoha and wait for the right time to strike. Sasuke also has the flashback of Itachi crying in 403, and he talks to Tobi about it. He also refuses Itachi's eyes and dreams. Kisame's mission is to capture the 8 Tails. He and Sasuke infiltrate Kumo. Meanwhile, Killer Bee is with Sabu trying to improve his rapping. Killer Bee vs Kisame goes similarly to their fight in the manga, but B's acrobatic swordsmanship is also emphasized. The battle ends with A and B beheading Kisame like in the original. A and B see Sasuke disappearing with Kamui. B has been grievously injured from the fight, so when they return and the Raikage learns that Sasuke is a ninja from Konoha, he's furious. Natsu Rendan is officially over. I've made a playlist of all the videos from this event, so please check out any video that you've missed. If this does well, I might do more events where I upload a chain of videos in the future. I decided not to finish the Naruto reboot series because it requires a lot of time and thought to write, and only doing 2 allowed me to make even more videos for this event. than if I would have finished the series. I'll continue to upload over the summer, but please share these videos and continue to support me. All important links will be in the description. Thank you for your time. Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, share, subscribe, and help me revolutionize the manga industry by buying my manga and spreading the word. All important links will be in the description.